right, welcome back, Red Spotters. Another show in the Red Spotlight podcast. I'm your host, Alexis Soto, joined by Mr. David Francisco, and we're here to have our say on what the best television that was offered in the year of our Lord 2020, which of course, ended just about 8 months ago. And hey, I mean, that's kind of our style to really comment on the year before. Much long after the fact that it stopped being relevant. But here we are, and I think it's actually nice timing because this coming month, this month, because by the time that this episode is, made live or dropped, as they say, it would have been already September. So technically, when you're listening to this, it's already September. And so this is the historical month where they actually do broadcast the television Oscars, which are called the Emmys. And some of my favorite shows that I'll actually be discussing are up for huge awards. And also simultaneously, some of my least favorite shows are also up for some of those same awards as well. So we thought, and there it is, and of course it's always Kyle. This is the second day in a row where I've had a broadcast, literally in my intro, by the way, the intro of my podcast, be interrupted by Kyle probably sending some kind of idiotic photo that means nothing whatsoever to the chat. And so here I am having to silence my phone yet again. Thank you, Kyle, for your contribution every single time. Anyway, because the TV Emmys are having their shindig this month, you know what? Let's go ahead and insert ourselves. Let's preempt whatever they're going to say. And you're going to hear from David and I what our favorite content was as far as television was concerned. And let me just tell you this. I have actually been looking forward to the show for months now. And I think as far as usually we don't do top whatever favorite shows of the year because for our podcast, historically speaking, we are usually much more focused when it comes to film and movies, and we usually have our top 10 of the year. We still yet to do that. I mentioned Kyle. He has not committed, and he hasn't let us know when he will be available to record. So if you're looking for somebody to blame, there is that. At this point, I shudder to think maybe we won't even actually get the chance to record that until the day before we actually record our top 10 2021. That's how crazy. It's been a crazy 2 years, or a crazy year if you want to say. But because 2020 offered so little in terms of movies, movie going didn't really exist that year because of the pandemic. And so we were kind of forced to really be in our homes and to look for alternative content. And well, wouldn't you know it, that meant television. And it was kind of that friend that came back to really comfort us in that really dark time. We still haven't really left the pandemic in rear view as we would have preferred. But things are marginally better now than they were definitely a year ago when it comes to that. We can at least be outside and marginally risk ourselves, I guess. But yeah, basically in a nutshell, TV was where it's at, where 2020 was concerned, and movies, not so much. Really, it wasn't. And while there are probably some shows that we'll mention that left us a little less than enchanted, I just think as far as the quality that we're talking about, there's no comparison between the quality we got with television 2020 and then film 2020. And that's the opening salvo for this. So that's our show today on Red Spotlight number 346. But before we get to that, we do have a couple of, housekeeping items and a couple of lingering thoughts, as we say, from the last time that David and I actually sat down and did a podcast. That includes some updated information, perhaps, to add on to our Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. reviving into Secret Invasion speculation, and then also with the trailer for No Way Home for Spider-Man, the third movie. Coming, hopefully, it'll still come December of this year. uh, for all of that, let's go ahead and get this thing started. But maybe I should ask David, even though I kind of know what he's going to say. But how are you doing? How have you been? How has this week been treating you?
I'm good.
That's great to hear, man.
Yeah.
You know what I have to say before we get into this episode? I think the episode that you and I did last, I'm already cracking up. I have to say, I think that may have been a new record for like the number of rants that were literally like hurled at every which way. And I knew when we like stopped recording, man, this must have been a record. But when I listened, I haven't finished it, but I think I got to the part where I have gotten through most of the rants. I think I left off re-listening to it at the part where we're talking about Bad Batch. And there may be more rants there, I don't know. But man, it was like, we were doing this for 3 hours, and we were tearing it up left and right. And listening back to it, it's like, what I actually do appreciate is that not only was it like entertaining to hear ourselves like be that enraged over certain things, but I also do think that you and I had a really intellectual back and forth. It wasn't just like gibberish. It wasn't just rambling. I feel like when I heard it back, everything that you and I were like saying that we thought made a lot of sense. And you could tell how done I was that week, where I was just like not giving a rip about what people were even thinking of as far as like blowback. And I said a lot of stuff that I'm sure would piss people off left and right and center, and I didn't care. And I have to say, I think that may be my favorite or among my favorite shows, not only that you and I have recorded, but maybe of this year. It was a lot of fun to do and a lot of fun to listen back to. And so, I don't know, did you get any feedback? I know Alexis usually tunes every now and then to the podcasts.
No, I haven't got any feedback. I mean, I heard the Fantasy Fair podcast. My sister was like, I heard Masters of the Universe Revelations, my rant of that for like the third time already.
Yeah, of course, because she's in the same dwelling as you are, and so I'm sure she was exposed to that before that even happened. So I'm sure she's maybe more than had her fair share of rants about Masters of the Universe, that's for sure. But that's, what's really striking is, while that would seem to be an episode that you and I did, that there were a lot of things that we were bitching about, truthfully though, it was kind of riveting to kind of go back and forth and kind of like let that stuff out, our frustrations, because it does come from a place of love and hate, but also love as well. But what's really striking, now that you mentioned the Fantasy Fair podcast, which by the way is also dropping new episodes apparently on Fridays. But one of the ones that I did last with the team over there with Alexis Moreno and Kyle Lira was talking about Disney jacking up the prices left, right, and center, as I've just been saying here. And I have to say, I think that in and of itself was also a record recording for me, where now I have sounded really down on a lot of shows throughout the years, but I don't think I ever felt so disheartened talking about. Did you listen to that episode?
Yeah.
Okay, and then you tell me how I came across, but it's like I wasn't even like ranting how I would at the intensity I do on this show. I was just plain sad. At least that's how I thought I sounded across.
I mean, thinking about it now, I guess you did kind of sound sad. I was about to say like, I mean, you sounded pretty calm about it, but you could tell you were angry about it. I mean, you all kind of were like that, but yeah, I guess you could say you did kind of sound sad.
I wasn't yelling, that's for sure. I was just kind of sure I was calm about it, but it was like, because it was just depressing stuff. So interesting round of shows that we have here, but I wanted to mention that off the top, that I really enjoyed the episode we did last time. Speaking of which, one of the materials we discussed last time were these persistent rumors / reports from certain sources, or outlets, I should say, when it regards to Chloe Bennett coming back as Daisy and Clark Gregg coming back as Coulson for the Secret Invasion show. That it's interesting. I should clarify a couple of things. I said frequently in that episode that it was already filming. Apparently, it has not started filming. At that point, they said the filming was between August to December, but in the recent red carpet, Kevin Feige confirmed that it was about to start filming. So, which was like I think 2 weeks ago. So, between then, I don't know when, but I would assume right now is the time they're about to start filming the show. And it should run all the way through December. So just a quick correction on my part. But the whole gist of it was because Chloe Bennett left Powerpuff and part of her big reason for leaving was citing scheduling conflicts to projects that were really non-existent as far as her public profiles and IMDb were concerned. So that definitely started like getting people talking about, well, could this be? Because all of these things are kind of lining up. And then, of course, that other IMDb update that had Clark Gregg apparently also being involved in the show. Speaking of, it prompted Screen Rant to ask a question about those rumors. Why Clark Gregg was giving an interview with Screen Rant was because he returned as Agent Coulson more than a year after his last performance on the Marvel Studios What If animated series as himself. And I did see that episode, and I did enjoy it quite a bit. And let me tell you something. The best thing I liked about that episode was hearing Clark Gregg's voice again as Phil Coulson. Honestly, and he's actually one of the ones where it felt exactly like him, just as it would if it were in live action. Unlike some of the others where it really is kind of iffy, depending on like the voice actor or whatever. But it was so nice to hear him again, and be featured in something like that. And yeah, so he was giving an interview, and he was asked by, I think it was, I don't think it was Screen Rant. I think it was actually Entertainment Weekly, and they asked about these particular rumors about him coming back to the MCU sooner than later. That's how it was referred to. And his direct answer was, he was asked, has he heard this stuff? And then he says, yes, I do. I follow it like an avid fan. And Entertainment Weekly responded, or did a follow-up, is that something you can comment on at this time? And his answer was, I've heard those rumors. That's the comment I can make. I've heard those rumors. It's the same line of answer you get from these actors, and who you think and you highly suspect are going to come back. Coulson, I called him Coulson. Clark Gregg is really good at keeping the cards close to his vest, as they say. It just so happened there was another interview he gave. I think it was recorded some time ago during the airing of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and only just recently made public, or either that or it resurfaced with a podcast called Marvel Movie Minute. But at that time, he was asked by the podcasters if he was going to be coming back for What If, and Clark Gregg really played it off like, what if? I never heard of that. Like, he's playing around and didn't really at all answer the question. So first of all, Greg is great at like keeping a secret. Does this necessarily mean anything? No, it really doesn't. It doesn't mean anything definitive. It doesn't mean anything concrete. But I did find interesting is how he answered it was like, that's the comment I can make. I've heard those rumors. So it's not a no. Because usually I think like in the past, and this is being for real, in the past when he has been asked about like questions about like, this was during maybe when S.H.I.E.L.D. was on the air and he was asked questions like, is Coulson going to come back to the movies this here and that there? And a lot of those interviews, if you remember, he would be pretty like straightforward, like, no, that's not happening. I haven't been called about that, except for when Captain Marvel happened, right? But even then, like he's usually pretty like straightforward about these things. So when he refers to it, like, yeah, I've heard this stuff. That's all I can say right now is I've heard these things. So it's like, I don't know. It's like it's just a little like another crumb, right? To kind of point it in a certain direction. That's the first thing. The second thing is, with this interview with Marvel Movie Minute, which again, I believe was recorded around March or April. And that is about him talking about the stuff that, because the other thing with Greg is that as he said right there in the interview, is that he is an avid fan. He actually is like the rare kind of like actor in these things, and not only is like that actually like follows up on these things and like watches this stuff and watches the online space. And so he talks about how he was reading some things that people were spreading around. By the way, some of the things that you and I talked about in real time as these headlines were being written and everything, right? And that is in regards to this Darkhold scenario with WandaVision. You know, just thinking to myself, by the way, I'm watching this new reaction channel, and I just like watched his reactions of WandaVision, the whole thing. And just watching those reactions, that show has really aged well for me, at least based on how like, and it's already bringing back so many memories. But one of the memories that it brought back was the first time I saw the Darkhold, and I'm like, fuck, that's going to be a whole thing, isn't it? And I was proven right. Exactly. Mm-hmm. So this is what the Screen Rant article says, and it kind of details the conversation that was had in this interview. Though the MCU has seemingly distanced itself from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., series star Clark Gregg still firmly believes the Marvel show is canon. In Gregg's opinion, these storylines have done nothing to diminish his show's place in the Marvel canon. While appearing on the Marvel Movie Minute podcast, Gregg first brought up WandaVision and its apparent retcon. I love how they still use it, apparent retcon. That's how everybody was to assume that was what it was supposed to be, of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s own story. And then this is Gregg's quote in here. I've seen places where people felt like S.H.I.E.L.D. or something had been decanonized by stuff that happened in WandaVision in ways I couldn't even quite follow. And I'm pretty adept at this stuff, he said. Gregg then went on to praise MCU head Kevin Feige for his commitment to the fans and how he stood by Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. earlier this year. Gregg said, I read this comment the other day where someone said that, did this diminish Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.? And Feige said, I think you're really underestimating how powerful and passionate the fans of that show and the Netflix shows are and were. And I would never underestimate that or them. What Gregg is referring to there, again, we did cover this as it happened months back, but at the TCA press conference, Kevin Feige was asked a question by a reporter that was like looking for an opportunity to crap on the Marvel television shows and say, aren't you glad you're doing shit that's so much better? And Feige answered, like, I think the direct quote, like, I'm sure that there are legions of Daredevil fans and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. fans and Jessica Jones fans and Luke Cage fans that would disagree with you. Remember that? Mm-hmm. That's what he was referring to, I think, Gregg there.
Yeah.
Screen Rant goes on to continue. There are currently rumors that Coulson or perhaps Daisy will appear in Secret Invasion next year, which could clear up the question. Sorry, I need to squash a bug. Damn it. That could clear up a question on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s canon status for good. Until something like that happens, and I want to stress this part, I think this is the most accurate thing in the article, that what Screen Rant put here. Until something like that happens, though, this debate will rage on for a good long time. And we've been documenting that debate, haven't we? And it's been crazy.
Yeah.
As Gregg pointed out, fans of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. have stood by the series even when others knocked it. And while the broader MCU may never acknowledge the brilliant characters introduced within it, there will always be passion for the show. It's nice to know that Gregg himself believes in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s place in canon, and hopefully some of its characters will get the chance to rejoin the MCU in the future. So, David, that was quite a lot I threw at you. I am quite curious, and that's usually how these shows go, let's be real. I'm quite curious to hear what you make of all of these things.
No, I mean, it's
on top of like what we already discussed last week.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, for one thing, it's kind of fun that both Kevin Feige and Clark Gregg?
Clark?
Yeah. I was about to say Coulson, but
I know, me too. It's like they're kind of interchangeable sometimes. I said it myself. You know?
Yeah. Clark Gregg, they both like kind of. It's just kind of fun seeing them both be like, why are y'all like wanting to erase Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and the other Marvel shows? Like, it really makes no sense to them.
Why is this a thing?
Yeah, like, why is it a thing at all? Yeah, so it's always kind of fun to hear that. And, you know, for people who just keep saying, it's decanonized, nobody liked it, you're really wrong. Yeah, but also, but to bring up the, what was it, Secret Invasion thing? I mean, it's obvious he's in it and everything, and it's just...
Oh, you're convinced?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't know. I feel like if you're... I mean, it's not confirmed or anything, but like I think for sure I'm convinced that Daisy's gonna come out in it, and if you put her, I feel like you gotta put Coulson in it too. Like, there's no doubt about it. And like, they were both kind of like the heart and soul of the show. Also, you can kind of say the main characters of the show too. I
mean, literally, one of the last scenes was an exchange between just those two of the whole show.
Mm-hmm.
That was an amazing sequence, by the way. I get memories.
It's so great.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I feel like you just can't have one without the other, and I am pretty much convinced that both of them are there. It's too big a coincidence that what you mentioned with Clark Gregg, that he's usually straightforward with interviews about theories and everything, I guess, but also the other big coincidence of Chloe Bennett leaving Powerpuff Girls. I feel like it's just way too big of a coincidence. And so
it's interesting, right? How in the last couple of weeks, I think these last 3 weeks, a lot of things have like been lining up a certain way, and they're all pointing in a singular direction. And so like, I'm inclined to agree with you. I feel like Hawkeye, and you know what I'm talking about. And it's been made into like a meme at this point. I feel like Hawkeye, when Natasha basically tries to rescue him in Endgame, when she like comes with him with an answer to get his family back, and he's like, "Please don't give me hope." That's how I feel so often with this, because I've been disappointed so many times. You know, like, look, I've been a fan of the show for its entire existence back since 2013, right? And there were any number of opportunities for the films to acknowledge the show's existence, right? The Marvel Studios team. And they never once did that. And they still haven't, right? So it's kind of a lot to ask me to believe in something like this, where in like so many times it feels like I've been slapped away from that team. It feels like our particular stars have been slapped away. But a lot of those fans, and for reasons that are really mystifying and everything. But I guess I'll do it. I mean, it does give me hope. It does give me, because a lot of these things are, I mean, I want to read into these things. So of course I have to be in that frame of mind. So I have to like ask you, like, cause I think you're maybe more, unbiased than I am when it comes to this, but like, you can read it right there. You can kind of read in between the lines when he says, "I've heard those rumors." That's the comment I can make. That kind of is a little bit of a giveaway there. But again, I'm coming at it from like the hopeful, like, you're saying there's a chance kind of aspect here. And so like, again, it could mean nothing really, but it also could mean everything. That's where we're kind of getting in here. And I feel like these next couple of months, as the show is actually filming, we're going to see something, because we've seen like a lot of leaks come out of Marvel. Even the shows, we've basically already seen a snapshot of Moon Knight. We've seen the costumes from Hawkeye and Miss Marvel. We saw a lot of stuff that came out of, I'm sure we saw some stuff that came out of Loki and Winter Soldier and WandaVision. Maybe not, I can't recall it at the moment because it's so long ago at this point. But we're going to see something leak out. We're going to see something oh hell, things have already been leaking. If we know about like Coulson and Daisy coming back at some level, then yeah, things have already leaked. Man, it's an interesting time for leakers.
Yeah, I know.
Seriously. I know. It's a double-edged sword, that's for sure.
Yeah.
That's definitely true. Yeah, that is very much, I guess, my frame of mind when it comes to it. Before we move off this, I do want to also just, I know I've been saying it, but I don't think you heard it just yet, so I want to remind you. So I hope I did say at some point, maybe I haven't said it to you, but maybe I have to Peter, much to his dismay. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. actually won an award, believe it or not, the last 2 weeks. They won an international award from the Australian circuit, the television VFX, beating out high-profile shows like Watchmen and WandaVision, as a matter of fact. That's a big get. And Mark Kolpak and his team have delivered such amazing VFX, especially with the budget they were given. They had so little to work with. And it's also pretty remarkable how it also, the FX studio, FX, I think is what they're called. It was their first international award. So congratulations to them as well. And happy to see this show randomly popping up and winning some stuff. Deservedly so. And I'm happy to see a show get awarded for something it actually deserves in, because I have a feeling that in the next couple of weeks when the Emmys come, we're going to see some shows that probably don't deserve to win a lot of the things they're going to win. Just preparing you guys for that. Okay. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and talk about Spider-Man No Way Home. I want to make a couple of things quite clear. I probably am going to be caught in the middle between Peter and Kyle. And I know sometimes it can feel like we all have the same opinion on everything. That's really far from the case, though. There are a lot of disagreements we have. I noted, it caught me unawares last week, David, because I forgot that you liked Joker, which was the Joaquin Phoenix movie. I don't like the movie, but I made that quite clear myself. So there are things that we differ clearly on. But with Spider-Man, it's interesting because like I kind of agree with basically all of Peter's main criticisms. Although I'm not, even though the podcast last week was to the contrary, I'm not as down about it as I am, because I thoroughly enjoy Homecoming. I thoroughly enjoy Far From Home. I really love Tom Holland as Peter Parker. And that was a great trailer that we got, right? The actual finished version, which actually dropped after we recorded that episode, as a matter of fact. And I look forward to the movie, and I'm sure I'm going to enjoy it. I'm going to have a blast in that theater, because it's going to be a fun movie. I guess to help people, like, make people understand where we come from, because it's a point of view that's rarely really like put out there. Fun movies are great. I guess where I come at it is when you have so much like potential on the page, and you only go for fun when you could be going for like greatness that we haven't seen before. That's where the disappointment among Marvel movies typically comes in. It's like, okay, it's fun, it's good, but we want a little more than that, you know? It's not too much to ask, especially with the Spider-Man movie. But I suspect I'm going to walk out agreeing with Peter's main things, maybe, but I'll probably still like it. I'll be real with you. I love Homecoming. I still liked Far From Home. I'm sure Kyle will love it. And I'll be caught in between like, hey, I kind of agree with both of you. So that's kind of where I am, you know?
I agree with you on everything you said, even like what you said about Peter's thoughts. Like I listened to the podcast of your guys' thoughts, and I completely understand what Peter was saying. Even in our Far From Home audio commentary.
Oh, that's true. I forgot we did that.
Yeah, we did a lot.
We did that this year?
I think it was this year.
Was it this year? Are you sure it was that? I think maybe it was last year.
I don't know. I get both years confused so much.
It feels like one long year.
Yeah. But, real
quick. This is a great time. I don't want to cut you off, and I know I am, but this is a great time to plug our audio commentaries that you and I do. I think they're great. Captain Marvel, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Go listen to them. They're great. And apparently Far From Home, which I forgot we did.
Yeah. But I had trouble kind of like explaining how I felt about the movie during the audio commentary. But basically, it's just kind of there was something stopping me from loving the Far From Home. Yeah. I still enjoyed it. It's still fun to watch. I love Tom Holland, Spider-Man. I think he's great. But one of my biggest criticisms is that both Peter and MJ's relationship, I feel like it just wasn't fleshed out in this movie as much as it should have been. No. And that's what Peter was saying in his thoughts of the trailer, is that, if MJ dies in this one, or whoever, whatever happens, he's not going to feel anything. He's not going to feel sad about it because it's just, it wasn't that developed. And he probably thinks it's not going to get developed here. You can kind of tell from the trailer. Like, you get that little bit of them two together in the beginning, but then it's just going to be all action by the second half, probably. And so, yeah, it's just, I completely understand what Peter is saying. And I understand what you're saying, too. It's like, we really enjoy these movies.
They're a lot of fun.
But there's something...
It's gonna be a lot of fun. Look, to see Doc Ock back, and to see Green Goblin. William Dafoe back as the Green Goblin. Hearing his voice in the trailer gave me chills. I'm not gonna lie. Like, it was it's great. Although there is something to be said. Are they gonna feel exactly the same as they did? Because it's a different director handling those characters, not Sam Raimi.
I'm hoping that maybe both actors for Goblin and Doc Ock,
Molina and Dafoe.
I'm hoping for both of them, they'll just be able to slip back into the characters.
Yeah, kind of like I don't know if you ever saw Doctor Who's latest New Year's special. But it was John Barrowman. He came back as Captain Jack Harkness, and he slipped back into that role, and he felt exactly the same as he did back in the David Tennant, Russell T Davies era. But it was obviously Chris Chibnall's show at that point. I don't know if you ever saw it, but it felt exactly like Captain Jack Harkness.
I didn't see it, but I'm sure. That's a fun character. I just finished David Tennant's era of Doctor Who. I'm rewatching the whole show, and it was just so much fun seeing him. Oh my god,
isn't it? Yeah,
he's great. But yeah, I'm just hoping maybe both of those actors in the movie, they'll just slip right in, and maybe the directors are do whatever you want. I trust you guys. So who knows? And then in terms of what's happening with Peter Parker and his character, I really think Sony's not gonna let him go anytime soon. He's gonna make 20 movies of these. I don't know. And so I'm kind of hoping that because he's in the high school times, hopefully, if we make it to his college era, that's where we're kind of get, what people are kind of wanting, the Sam Raimi type of story, character arcs and everything. So I don't know. I'm just kind of remaining hopeful about that. And to me, that would make kind of sense, because in the high school, not many people can relate to his problems. That's actually something that happened with Spider-Man Homecoming. People were just there weren't any stakes to Homecoming. All he cared about was getting the girl. And some people are just kind of he's in high school. That's kind of what's most important for people in high school, And that's kind of that's what I keep saying, that's what I keep seeing on the internet. It's just kind of where are the stakes in Spider-Man Homecoming? It's he's in high school. You can't really give him a life or death stake, because you don't want to see a kid die, and even though he'll be in his college era, he'll still be a kid. When he's in that part, you can kind of raise the stakes a bit more.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's Yeah. So it's like that's kind of where ultimately I feel we're gonna land. Um, but here's a clear difference, though, is and I think Peter made this a really great comparison to Rise of Skywalker, and that is no way in hell is Marvel going to turn in a movie that is as disappointing as it is bad as that one was. Because here's the thing, and I think I made this point when I was discussing with him. It was one thing to know about the plot of that movie months in advance. But even and why it was like bad was mostly because of the big creative choices from my perspective that they made, right? But there was still a reality that could have existed where if it was directed well, at least it could have still been good. It was just badly directed as it was badly written. And one of the biggest examples of it was The Emperor. That actor really tried his best to slip back into what he was doing, but he couldn't withstand the truly impressive writing, not in a good way, of Chris Terrio and J.J. Abrams and everything. So it's interesting to see, but I don't expect, and neither does Peter. That's what will make all the difference, right? Is it will be good. And I think where the disappointment comes in from others is that that's all it will be. It'll be good. So that's kind of where things are. But the trailer was very good. And it speaks to how much people love this character, that it shattered the record that Avengers Endgame, the trailer, the views for the number of views in the trailer for like the first couple of hours, and it makes me wonder, like, if we were in the before times, not only would Spider-Man No Way Home like easily make $1 billion, it could probably crack 1.5 billion, maybe even more in normal times. Nowadays, it's hard for me to even do box office predictions anymore because they kind of mean nothing. Every movie just bleeds money unless you're like Candyman and you have like a $20 million budget and you make it back in 1 week. Well, good for you. Or Free Guy, which was, not that like inexpensive, but throughout the couple of weeks can make your money back. Which, by the way, I had not seen Free Guy the last time you and I were doing a podcast together. I had since. I love that movie. It just felt like a jolt to my soul because it was the kind of movie I remember, like, it's the kind of movie experience with the kind of originality attached to it that it made me feel like a kid again in the best way possible. Not because of nostalgia, but because of like how new and exciting it was. And it was filled with like comedic performances, even dramatic performances, and even some great romance in there too, with some wonderful moments and wonderful, even bit of action, maybe not like hand to hand or like fighting scenes. I mean, like just like the action you see in movies, the action of characters and everything. If you haven't seen Free Guy, go see this movie. It is really good, honestly. Like if it is among the movies I suggest you go watch in theaters right now. It is so good. Going back to No Way Home, it's a great trailer. That is true. Did you have anything else to say on that?
No.
Okay. So if we have that out of the way with, let's go ahead and get on with television 2020. Okay, so I've been thinking long and hard about how to best approach this discussion. And so here's how it's going to be, at least for me. With I do have my top 10 ranked, but because Peter can be annoying and I have to clarify these rules. So I am treating the seasons of these shows that aired in the year 2020 as if they were movies. I'm treating them as if they were movies because that's how I would rank them. That's how they would appear on a list if I were to rank them as if they were movies, right? So these these seasons stand on their own apart from the rest of the show that came before. A lot of these shows that I have actually are like seasons 2s, 3s, 4s, 5s, right? So they've had episodes that have come before. I'm not including those in my estimation. I'm grading these on like, were they great seasons of television? And I want to reiterate that because there's one that's going to make people fall out of their chairs with how low it is, with how much I've said I love this show. It ain't the one you're thinking of. Let's not get too crazy here, but it's one of those that I think I've spoken about how great it is for years and years. So just so you know, like, it is technically among my favorite. It's a show I like more than a lot of these other seasons that are technically higher. But again, I am grading it definitely on how great of a season it was. Not just like how many great episodes, but also just like the storyline and that whole thing, right? But before we get to that, I apparently only really watched 13. 13 seasons of TV. For 13 shows in 2020.
I have twice as much as that.
Okay. I have 2 dishonorable mentions. That's something that I'm adding into this. And the other 11 are ones that I actually enjoyed. You have twice as many, so you have at least 26 seasons of television.
Yeah.
Okay, so do you have a for sure like top 10?
Yeah.
Okay. So of those other shows that you mentioned, were some of those seasons ones that you didn't like?
Yeah, there's one, really.
Okay. Should we start off with the obvious one? Or maybe it's not the obvious one. I don't know.
I think it's going to be the obvious one. Go for it.
So, boy. Well, actually, I would think my 2 dishonorable seasons you watched. So unless you completely forgot one of these, that's going to be curious to see. I think you'll have a lot more because you have a lot more shows. You have a lot more that you like than I do. That's for sure. So let's start off with this, right? So there's a show on Disney Plus that has been nominated for every award under the sun, including Best Drama Series. Evidently, this past weekend, this very show won Best Drama Series over things like The Crown. That happened. And it's making me quite nervous. Anyway, it's almost hard to it almost feels unfair to lay into the show because of how much of my personal frustration comes more from the reaction to it than the actual show itself. You know, it's not that triggering of a show. What's really triggering and enraging is what comes out of it. And it really brings the whole experience down. There are some things, though, to be fair, that are kind of bad. I mean, in and of themselves. But it's just kind of meh, whatever. And then, like, really, I don't care. And that's kind of the nicest things you can say. So, of course, we're talking about the flagship series for Disney Plus, and that is The Mandalorian. Now, if you haven't listened to this podcast before, you may be shocked because I can guarantee you, not guarantee, but I can probably highly suspect that all the people who don't like the show are on this podcast on the face of the planet, because that's kind of how it is. It's a universally acclaimed series and everything. And I want to say this off the bat. If this is something you love and it's your favorite thing ever, great for you. I'm happy for you. Do not let any of the things that I or David say deter you. All opinions, all art is subjective. Your opinion on this is as valid as anybody else's. if this is your jam, if this is what you love, I ain't gonna knock you for that on that premise. But I will make it very clear what reasons I don't like about it, and then also what annoys me, and reasonings for those. So listen, the first season of The Mandalorian was okay. It was okay. It's moderately entertaining. It didn't bug me all that much. Mm-hmm. What really kind of confused me about the reaction to season 1 was why it was being called the best thing since Return of the Jedi and Star Wars. That really threw me for a loop. Then season 2 came along, and this kind of reaction was a whole other level. Like, the adoration was slobberish. I have never seen the unanimous praise that was thrown at this show. That's it. That's the sentence. I've never seen that happen. I've never seen that happen the way that it did. And every single week, I remember part of the experience, it was kind of like hate watching the show almost, at least for me. Hate watching it and then like getting on the call with you guys and talking about, and all of us like collectively losing our shit because we wouldn't get what everybody was seeing in this. Mm-hmm. Literally, all of us would be like on social media and looking at all the reactions and all the reviews, and just at a loss of words for why people were going crazy over all of the things that were happening on here. The season 2 of The Mandalorian, I think mostly what it suffers from, I think really what it all suffers from is just poor writing. I don't think it's a smart decision that your main character, whose name I forget half the time, literally to this day, whose face is practically non-existent. I know that there is this conception out there that the show is able to make a fully fleshed out character out of a man who's behind a helmet. I don't know where they get that from. I don't. When your main character is somebody who's behind a helmet, who you can't see their face all the time, and then you have a baby that can't talk, there's no really interaction for me. There's really no show for me there. So where people get the whole notion of how much they connect to that bond, personally, I don't get it. I never have, and it seems like I never did. And I think that's continued on here. As far as like you making me care about it, I don't think this season made me at all care about them. In fact, there were many times where this season was far more concerned with like setting up other shows via introducing Star Wars legacy characters like Boba Fett, like Bo-Katan, like Ahsoka Tano, like fucking Luke Skywalker of all things. Mm-hmm. And it became comical to the point where it's like halfway through the season, Peter and I were like jokingly, oh yeah, because the writers Favreau and Filoni would do this. Let's think of the most outlandish thing out there that would make no sense to insert in this, and let's predict that Luke Skywalker would be in the finale. And then guess what happens? Luke Skywalker was in the finale. And I know that it was the intention of the team behind the show, and it was the perception of many fans out there that the inclusion of these characters added to the story. I don't know what story there even is, honestly. Besides, I think the only story with The Mandalorian is the people who make this show are lifelong Star Wars fans, and they get to play with Star Wars toys as their main job, and that's basically what you get for a show. And if you watch the Disney Gallery documentary of the making of season 2, the 2 episodes that are on Disney Plus right now, that's basically the impression you get, because 99.9% of the time, and I watched those 2 things, were spent on talking about the technology and the coolness of having these characters be in the show. 0.1% was dedicated to the actual storyline of the season. That's really telling. Some of the stuff really was jarring and out of place for me when it came to Star Wars. Boba Fett going all ape shit and murdering those stormtroopers in like a really like in the quote unquote badass way. And I mean that as a pejorative here in this case. It was kind of distasteful for me and also completely sad and unnecessary. It's hilarious how people thought like that cosplay looking Boba Fett was like awesome and everything, when it was just kind of sad to see. Ahsoka was really disappointing for me because it didn't feel like Ahsoka. Not the one that I know, not just because it was Rosario, but it was just weird writing going on with what she was there. And then when you realize that that episode was to set up her own live action show, which was hijacked from being an animated show into a live action show, which only pisses me off even further. And then you have Luke Skywalker, which like talk about taking all of the tension out of the show. And also the reaction that it caused was just inexplicable beyond imagination. And that it is an Emmy-nominated show for writing, and they basically copied what Robot Chicken did years ago. The ending, Robot Chicken, where you have Boba Fett take the throne from Bib Fortuna at Jabba's palace. That's some real Emmy Award nominated work right there. The only thing that I will say that I liked about this season was the first episode. Timothy Olyphant is great in anything and everything he is, and as far as like a standalone story, I enjoyed it. Even that it was on Tatooine, it still didn't, I guess, deter me. I liked Cobb Vanth's presence, and that Crate Dragon was pretty great. It is by far the weakest season of television I've seen of the year. Maybe ever in my life. David. Because you said this is one of yours as well, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with everything you said. It's just, what is it? Mando.
You mean Din Djarin. Again, whose name I forget half the time.
Yeah. He wasn't a character. Basically, he was just told, hey, go over here, and he does it. There's no character development in those episodes. There was barely a growing connection to him and the Grogu. And so it's just one random episode after another. And usually, like, well, actually, no, I was gonna say, usually I like that, but no, I don't. Even like cartoons do like a better character development than what Mandalorian did. Again, I mention this cartoon all the time, but like I've only watched a few. But you know, there's one cartoon called Craig of the Creek. Yeah, Craig of the Creek. Yeah, and you know that one. He's in this kind of like forest area all the time, and at one episode, 30 minutes long, he kind of learns how to be responsible of a society, basically, and all that. It's like, how can I make stuff better for people and all that? And he just kind of learns that lesson in that episode. Again, 30 minutes. It's a cartoon. You know, I'm sure you can complain about the dialogue that's moving super fast or something, fine, but like at least there's something and there's funny jokes, there's cool animation, and he does go through a character development. We watching, yeah, The Mandalorian, their episodes are like an hour, right? No?
No, Mo, the average runtime for a Mandalorian episode is like 35 to 40 minutes.
Okay. Either way, they're still shorter than way shorter than Mandalorian.
Right.
And so the fact that we don't get anything like that in those episodes, but I can see that in the cartoon, like, come on, you know there's got to be something wrong there. And so it's just really disappointing, honestly.
It's disappointing that this is the kind of Star Wars that is seen as like the cream of the creme. The cream of the crop, as they say. Where they're like, if I'm being honest with you, I think The Mandalorian is probably the least I have cared about a Star Wars project maybe ever. Well, there are others that I probably didn't care too much about, like Resistance or Solo. But even then, like, it's still bottom of the barrel for me. This really could have been something phenomenal. What is phenomenal is the effects. Oh my God, is this show beautiful?
Yeah.
I think that's half the reason why I bother watching every week. Is just to see how good it looks.
Yeah.
'Cause it looks so good. and the groundbreaking technology that's involved with making. That's why I watched the Disney Gallery episodes of the show, because I think what's most interesting is the making behind the show, how this thing even exists. That's the most interesting aspect to me about it. The show itself, no. No.
No, I mean, I'm sure we're going to praise it for a long, long time for the technology and the effects of it.
It'll probably win a couple of Emmys for its effects work, and that's the only time I'll say that those wins would be well deserved.
Yeah.
So that's Mandalorian. The next dishonorable mention I have is season 12 of Doctor Who.
Oh, I didn't even put it on my list, actually. I just barely realized it.
You guys, if you want to go ahead and add it onto your dishonorable mentions, like that's just how abysmal it was that you forgot it even existed. That you forgot you even watched it. This one particularly hurts because Doctor Who is basically in my top 5 favorite TV shows of all time. The first 10 seasons, anyway. The first 10 seasons of the revival era. Season 12 it starts out being a little bit better than season 11, but then it ends up in a place where it's kind of the worst thing I've ever seen when it comes to Doctor Who. It kind of evokes a lot of the feelings I had when I watched Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker, and how disappointed and dismayed I was at the big creative choices made in that storyline. To me, this really just like, it made it official that the magic was gone with the show. The characters the dynamic doesn't work. These companions aren't characters. They just aren't. It's not even that they can't react much of anything, it's that they don't react, and the show gives them nothing to do but to talk about plot. This Doctor, and this may be the biggest cardinal sin of the season, this Jodie Whittaker doesn't feel like the Doctor. And again, no, not because she's a woman. I don't know how many times we have to say this. Fuck those people that say that, clearly. She doesn't feel like the Doctor because Chris Chibnall gives her lines to read that do not sound like the character that all of the previous doctors were able to make it feel like it was the same person with the same kind of values through all of the different actors. And she just doesn't feel it like it at all. There's no tension to most of these episodes. A lot of these episodes are just forgettable and interchangeable. It's not interesting. A lot of them are just flat out boring too. Yeah, and it kind of really like broke the dam for me. Like, I don't care about this era, and while I will watch the next season because I mean I am an avid fan of the show and I do hope for things to improve, I certainly don't expect it to, and that's why I'm excited to see this team leave at the end of the next season. Now, David, evidently it was so bad for you, you forgot it even existed.
Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, I've said it before. Chris Chibnall just, he's not good. I'm glad he's leaving too. And I just feel bad for Jodie Whittaker because I was so excited for her after the first episode, and she got nothing to work with at all. You're saying it didn't feel like the Doctor. I mean, I can agree with that. I can pinpoint some scenes and all that. But for me, though, it's just she got nothing to work with. And people will say that she's a bad actress in the show or something. But I'm like, you can't really range her acting skills because she's got nothing. I'm sure you can. I haven't seen anything else from her, so like I can't really gauge her acting either. But from this, I can't even gauge her acting still too because she's got nothing to work with.
Yeah, like in season 12 also felt like an overreaction on Chris Chibnall's part to insert a lot of the classic stuff. Where like in his first season 11, he went out of his way to like not include any of like the classic monsters, and like we mentioned early on in the season, like you immediately you get Daleks, you get the Master, you get the Cybermen, you get the Jadoon back.
Captain Jack.
That's true. Like a lot of things are kind of. It felt like they were throwing everything at the wall to see what would stick, and nothing did.
This was literally in a season of Mandalorian. Just put in all the things that you know, and hopefully people will come and see.
Yeah, there are some similarities. I like you mentioned it.
Mm-hmm.
Only here, it's like you do have a set of main characters that you could possibly be invested in, but the writing just doesn't help you with that whatsoever.
No.
So those are the seasons that I saw this year that I had overwhelmingly negative thoughts on. Did you have other seasons, or no, or the rest are all just mostly positive?
Mostly positive. Yeah.
Okay, so here's what we'll do. I have 11. So why don't you start off naming off the shows until you get to number 11?
Okay. So next one is The Boys. Yeah, first season I enjoyed it. It's just a fun take. Pretty violent. I like violence. Whatever. But also just kind of like I like their world of making the superheroes as popular as ever, but not really making them true heroes or anything like that. It's just kind of like it really shows our world. Like I think this is really what would happen, and that's really what would happen if we had like a Superman character in the real world. Like he just looks down on everyone, doesn't give a shit, and so it was just interesting. Umbrella Academy.
Oh yes, yeah, it was season 2, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, season 2. It was fine. I just really like the characters. Basically, they're all kind of fun. They're all kind of messed up because of the way they were raised and everything. But I just kind of like their family dynamic and how they always try to come together in the end. It's kind of fun to watch.
Can I ask real quick though? Because I know the Boys does a weekly release on Amazon Prime. I think most of the streaming services have now done that, where they release a certain number of episodes every week instead of doing the whole season at once. Mm-hmm. Netflix, they dropped all of Umbrella Academy at once. From that season, do you think you would have enjoyed that more if they had done one episode a week, or are you glad they just dropped it all at once because it was made to watch all at once?
I'm glad they dropped it all at once. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Next show, Upload. This is one about the
before. That's a
name
guy.
His subconscious, I guess, gets uploaded to like the internet, I guess, or a server. Basically, people who died, it's their heaven, I guess, until hopefully they can, clone their body and just put them back to life and all that. Basically, really. And I kind of like the concept of afterlife and everything, trying to live life to the fullest in a way. It's a pretty interesting show. I highly recommend it. The next one is Best Leftovers Ever. This is actually a food competition show on Netflix.
Is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's pretty cool. I watched it because one of the hosts of the judges of the show, he's on YouTube. He's a comedian. I really like him. His name is David So. That's mostly why I saw it. I'm like, oh my gosh, he has a show of his own. Right. Sadly, it did not get renewed for a second season, which kind of sucks. Yeah, but basically the premise is people they have to make a certain food, whatever they want, but they have to use the leftovers that are given to them. And so I think it's a cool concept. Next one, which this is 21 on my list. Might be surprising. Supernatural.
Is it surprising though?
I don't know, because 21.
Sure, okay.
I don't know.
Season 15, right?
Yeah.
I'm not. Are you like? Would you consider like a big Supernatural fan?
Oh yeah, I've seen all the episodes and everything, and I do love the show.
I guess you must be right. Have you seen all 15 seasons?
Yeah. You either dip out by season 3 or you're staying with it the whole time. But yeah, this was the finale and everything, and I really enjoyed it. It was a good run. It was a fun watch, really, honestly. And what I liked about this season is just, like every other season, they're always somehow able to up the villain. You know, before, like, where do you go after the devil? Like, for us, it's like, where the heck do you go? And so, in the next season after that, it was mostly just there was a civil war in heaven because the devil was supposed to fight Gabriel. Like, that was supposed to happen, but because it didn't, there's this power surge happening, and now all the angels were fighting for dominance in heaven. And so it was like an interesting thing. And the next one after that, it's like, okay, now where do you go out? Where do you go with angels? Purgatory.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it's just they're able to up the ante, and so in the final season, they're up against God himself, and it's like, what you do? And it's just, and also it had one of my, I think this might be my favorite episode, where all of a sudden things were just going bad for the main characters. Like, what's happening? Like, why am I getting sick all of a sudden? Why am I, like, he's getting heartburn? It's like, why is our car shutting down? Like, this thing has been going for like all my life. Why is it shutting down now? And one guy points out, so basically, and what they find out at one point, that God is basically manipulating their lives throughout their entire life. They were meant to become hunters. They were meant to lose all these people in their lives. And so what happens? And so basically that makes them the main characters of God's show. So what happens if you lose all of your like heroic plot armor, basically? That was basically the premise of the episode. It's like, what if you lose the plot armor? What if you don't become the main character of someone's show anymore? You just decide once where you do get sick, you do like all this normal stuff that we go through just starts happening to you. It was just an interesting concept. Cool. Yeah, but yeah, it was a good finale. Another good finale, Arrow.
I forgot that was last year. It feels like it's been gone for a long time. Longer than that. Yeah,
for sure. But
interesting how this one ended off at season 8.
Yeah. I mean
for a CW show, right? Like, usually, because we just talked about Supernatural, and that went on till season 15.
Mm-hmm. And
God damn, 15 seasons.
I think there's other shows that went on longer than Arrow. I think maybe Vampire Diaries has gone on longer than Arrow. The show ended like a long time ago still, but either way.
There's a good chance The Flash goes on longer than Arrow.
Maybe.
It's not guaranteed this season's the last one.
Yeah, true.
Could be a season 9.
Mm-hmm.
God damn, a 9th season of The Flash.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But Arrow, I like what they were doing.
Are they still doing, by the way, real quick? I don't want to... with Arrow... How many episodes did the last season of Arrow have? Was it a full 22?
No. They cut it short. I want to say 13, but maybe less. I can't remember. Because I think there might have been like a little hiatus because of the...
Pandemic?
Yeah. Oh, no, never mind. I'm sorry. No, that was just Supernatural, actually. But yeah, I think it might have been, I want to say maybe 8. Because the final season... That's a pretty conservative amount for a CW show. Yeah, well, the thing though is that this was just, since it was the finale and everything, and most of the season was just to set up Crisis on Infinite Earths, the big crossover event. Mm-hmm. And that's where his story pretty much ended in the crossover event. So it was just mostly a focus of the crossover, but also kind of bringing back a bunch of characters from past seasons. The journey, like, so, look how far we've come. Since it was an 8-episode season, and it was more focused on the story it was telling, how do you think season 8 fared in comparison to some of the more recent seasons?
did it help that it was like a shorter episode length? Did it improve from other previous seasons? Ultimately, how did you feel about Arrow as it aged into its final years? Because I know a lot of people have like very conflicting opinions about that.
Honestly, the show should have honestly ended like a long time ago. And I say this the same thing with Supernatural, and I think I like Supernatural more than Arrow. Both of those shows, and any CW show really, like it's gotta end earlier than what.
What about Riverdale? How's that one doing? Oh, I know you love that show.
I don't know. Honestly,
you don't.
I don't really acknowledge it as a good show. It's just a really big.
You can't help but watch.
I can't help but watch. It's such a guilty pleasure for me, honestly. Okay. Like all the things that I could tell you what happens, you're just gonna go, "What the fuck is going on in that show?" But like, it's just so fun for me to watch.
I've heard some things that are just like, "What the fuck?" That sounds nothing like the show what it was in season 1. It's like it almost feels like they do an American Horror Story where like, you know, where every year it's the same cast but like it's different characters and it's like some kind of weird shit that they're doing. It almost feels that way. Okay, so back to your thoughts on Arrow and how it's aged and everything. Like, how did this season like do against its more recent seasons, like 6 or 7?
I did enjoy this more than recent seasons because, again, it was mostly just kind of like, oh, look how far we've come and everything. But also, I kind of like the whole building up to the big event of the crossover and all that. And where he was left off in the crossover, I really liked it. It was just kind of like, yeah, it almost does feel like you should be here. If you don't know, and this is spoilers, he basically just became like a celestial almost in a way. That's what became of him. Sort of died, but also just kind of became a celestial. And so it was just kind of cool seeing, yeah, this is where he's gone. Look how far he's come. This is his peak. This is the best moment for him. And I kind of like what they left off with his finale, where basically his city, what is it? Star City? Oh crap, I can't remember. There's so many cities. His city basically it became peaceful. There was literally no crime after he saved the universe. Like
wow.
And it was like, and they were supposed to make a spin-off, Green Arrow and the Canaries. Did not get greenlit, which kind of sucks. But you know that one. But for that one, they're supposed to say like, "Oh, there's been peace in this city for 20 years. Like nothing's happened until we start Green Arrow and the Canaries, where everything starts going wrong again." And so I don't know. That's pretty cool.
So ultimately, while you feel the show was kind of like lagging these last couple of years, they brought it all home.
Yeah, I think
like
so.
Supernatural.
Yeah. Next one, Lock and Key. This is a Netflix show based off a comic. That one, it just had an interesting concept. These kids move into a house that apparently their dad owned, and they start finding keys all over the place, and each one does like a special thing. One, you can like, your soul can leave its body. Another one, you can go inside your thoughts, like look through your memories, look through your subconsciousness and everything. And they had to deal with some demon coming after them. What I really liked about the show, honestly, is just the brother sister dynamic. It wasn't that whole "you're ruining my life, leave me alone" type of brother sister. Like, no, they were there for each other. When shit hit the fan, they were like, "Okay, let's do what we got to do." You know, they're in it together in whatever situation that throws in their way. It was fun. Next one, Lego Masters.
What?
You ever heard of it?
I don't think I have. No.
Oh my gosh, it's a competition show where people who like, you know, professionally make Lego sets and all that, but like the big crazy concepts, they're in the competition to make whatever.
Okay, that's Lego. Not at all what I was picturing. I thought we were talking like a Lego animated show or something.
No. No, it's just,
that's different.
Yeah, no, it's honestly just fun. It's really cool what they're able to build and all that. I highly recommend it if you like competition shows. Yeah, you also you like the people there. They're kind of for me. They look they kind of act awkward. Like they don't. I mean, they're trying to entertain the audience, obviously, in some way. But like, but I don't know. It's just fun. Next one, Warrior Nun. This one,
I've not heard of this one either.
It's on Netflix. First season. I think a second season was announced sometime this year. That one's just, it's about this girl who she not by choice gets given like a halo ring on her back, and she's become the next warrior nun, where she has to fight demons. And so she's sort of conflicted because she literally died before she was given the halo, so that thing brought her back to life. And so she kind of like, okay, either I live my life now, like the way I wanted to, or I just become a superhero and probably die the next day. And so it's just kind of like this conflicting feelings for her. And it's interesting. I talked about this before where I kind of complained about the last episode. It wasn't bad. It's just the villain that pops up. Weird acting from him. Like,
really?
He's just had his mouth open the entire time.
Oh, I think he did say something about this.
Yeah, and not like wide open or anything. It's just kind of like, just think of someone having like a dumb look on their face, but like, you know, where they're drooling and everything, kind of like that. It's just, that was just him the entire time. And I'm like, what is going on here?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I hopefully he doesn't do that next season, but we'll see. Next one, Inside Pixar.
I forgot this thing even existed.
Yeah.
What was this show?
What was it?
Yeah, was this a documentary show or was it something else?
I guess you can say documentary show, but it's basically just kind of the people who work in Pixar. You got
really?
A few PAs. I think this is the one that had like the person who makes the food inside like the Pixar studios and all that. It was just, I mean, it's just kind of cool what happens inside the studios and everything, what each person's job is, I guess.
Oh, but literally inside Pixar.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, it's nice. 15, Stargirl. I praise this a lot. Second season started. I'm liking it so far. But
okay, remind me, which is this one and where is it on? Was it on DC Universe, CW, HBO Max?
It was on DC Universe the first season.
Right.
The second season, CW got the rights for it.
Okay.
Yeah. But you should watch both seasons on the first season on HBO Max, actually.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, I like the character. I think they had like a great first episode on that one, and it was enjoyable. 14, Altered Carbon. You heard of this?
Was this with Anthony Mackie?
Yeah.
Okay, I think I have, but not remembering too much.
Yeah, but this is a sci-fi world where people's souls are basically on this chip. That chip is okay. They can go to any other body that they want to. And you're just following this.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so the main character, this guy, he's kind of like almost like a super soldier. Not super strength or anything, but like he's a really good soldier. The second season, well, what happened in the second season? Actually, it's been a while since I watched it. I think I just know he's doing some sort of investigation, but it just kind of leads to this bigger event that that his past is sort of connected to, and everything. But I highly recommend watching the show, especially the first season. Cool concepts, some pretty cool graphics and everything. I highly recommend. 13, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Yeah, we've given all our thoughts on it.
I'll give a lot more thoughts on that as well.
Yeah.
We had a whole thing last year. We talked about all the episodes at length. It's called Beyond the Shield, by the way. It's on our feed. Yeah.
12, Bridgerton.
Bridgerton. This was people went crazy over this.
Yeah, I mean, it was.
What is this show? I mean, people. It's one of these things that like people go crazy over, but I look at images and I'm like, what the fuck is this show supposed to be about? I don't get it.
So basically, it's just the place that they're at. No, I know. Well, they're just like in this place, and think of it like Gossip Girl, but taking place. I don't know, what is it, 16th century or something? I don't know. And so basically, like the Gossip Girl concept is someone's putting out this paper, or just basically bringing up all the gossip that's going around this like little town and everything. And you're following this one family, where the oldest daughter, she's of age basically to be, where men can come in and like, give their hand to her, and just a bunch of rumors, not about her exactly. It's just kind of like this person, the Gossip Girl person, is just kind of ruining her chances. And so she tries to come up with a scenario to kind of like basically try to get the best person for her to like help out her family, I guess. Or
let me ask you this question, David. How much of a soap opera does this feel like? Because you saying it's like Gossip Girl, it kind of made me click. That's why it's so fucking popular.
Yeah.
It's like people are like coming here to get the tea.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, basically it is very soap opera-ish. So the scenario that I'm talking about is that, there's one guy, he's a duke, and he's making sure like, I am never going to get married, I am never going to have kids and everything. So she's like, ooh, so that women stop going after him, or for his like aunt to stop like trying to hook him up with someone. Mm-hmm. He's like, okay, what if you and I pretend to be together, and like, that way girls don't come after me. This way men will want you even more, because you have the richest person in the town with you, basically. And so that's sort of the main plot, is just trying to, it's this weird scenario, and the spoilers, but
it kind of reminds me, that plot summarization kind of reminds me like a trashy version of Greta Gerwig's Little Women.
I mean,
maybe the opposite of that.
It is. I mean, yeah, actually, it is kind of like the opposite of that, because the main character and the main girl, she wants to get married, obviously, whereas the one for Little Women, she doesn't.
By the way, if you haven't seen Little Women by Greta Gerwig, it is such a wonderful movie. Mm-hmm. It's such a wonderful, delightful, heartwarming movie. Yeah, go watch that movie if you haven't seen it. It's one of those things that got lost because the fucking pandemic happened. Because it came out in theaters nationwide, I think, in early January in 2019. No, in 2020, I mean. Yeah, it's 2019, but then it carried over to 2020. And, well, we know how that went quickly. So it was kind of forgotten about by the time the pandemic hit and everything. So go watch that movie.
Yeah. But yeah, that was number 12. I'm on 11 now. You want to...
So, with me, I have Modern Family. So because WandaVision happened, and WandaVision isn't included in this because it's 2021. So for those who are... We've talked a lot about TV shows this year, but they won't be included in this conversation because they're 2021, not 2020. So what was 2020 was Modern Family. And Modern Family was kind of a big thing for me, 11 years ago when it was new and everything. It's a long ass time. 12 years ago now, as a matter of fact. Mm-hmm. Jesus. When it debuted back in, I think, 2009. Oh my God. But Modern Family in many ways kind of represented like the endurance of the sitcom, of the next evolution of the sitcom, perhaps in a way more so than The Office was. It's definitely not as popular as The Office these days are, but it was more popular than The Office was, at least even when The Office was airing. And it was just a really like wholesome show. And I fell off early on in season 6, I think, and I would watch the first 6 seasons as it was airing on TV, but then I didn't ever go back and watch the final seasons. And it has happens to be that they aired their 11th and final season last year in 2020, which for a sitcom, that's about, when you get to 11 seasons, that's like your gold standard. That isn't like the average, but like if you hit 11 seasons, you can tell how fucking mega successful you are with the masses. And Modern Family is a genuinely great show, I would say, for the first 6 seasons. Seasons 7 through 9 really kind of go down in quality. And I think seasons 10 and 11 got it a little closer to what the first 6 seasons were like, and it ultimately brought things out to an end that was quite satisfying and quite emotional. And I think there was like 1 or 2 episodes in the 11th season that ended up being one of the most hilarious episodes they've done in their entire 11-year history. So with that being said, I just wanted to commemorate this wonderful show that has meant so much to so many people, and go watch it on Hulu like I did, because it's great. And it also kind of made me nostalgic too, because like, wait a minute, this is a show that aired in the early 2010s, and now here we are 10 years later, and I'm like, what is time? What is going on that this is not considered to be old when I was there when it was new? What is going on? It's crazy. It is so fucking crazy. It makes me feel like I want to die. But no, I mean, the cast is so great with Julie Bowen, who clearly Elizabeth Olsen emulated in one of the episodes of WandaVision. Ed O'Neill, Ty Burrell, Sofia Vergara, Eric Stonestreet, Jesse Tyler Ferguson, Sarah Hyland, Ariel Winter, Nolan Gould, Rico Rodriguez. These wonderful like characters you've known for 11 years. And I think the best kind of way to summarize the show, it's like, picture like your big family. If your big family was that close, and it kind of almost makes you kind of wish that sometimes that you were as close as this Modern Family was. And I do credit a lot to this show for having helped change the mindsets and kind of change the hearts of many Americans about how they feel about different kinds of families. Not all looking the same and not all being the same. And I feel that's a positive change. And a lot of the shows that I will mention later on in my list, I think could not have existed if it weren't for the trailblazing nature of Modern Family. So my salute to that beautiful, wonderful show. I love it so much. Yeah. That's my 11.
My sister started watching the show.
Did she?
Yeah, and so every once in a while, like, she'll put it on, and we'll just sit there and start watching it. And yeah, they're so fun. Yeah. Last one that I saw was the episode where what's the redheaded guy's name?
Jesse Tyler Ferguson. He's Mitchell.
Yeah. He was like he works at a law firm, and it was like a Halloween episode.
That one. Oh yes, he's Spider-Man. Yes.
Oh my god! And there's like, you know, like that like secondhand embarrassment you get just like on any comedy show. And when he got there, I was like, he's gonna be the only one in costume, isn't he? And it's just like,
yeah.
Oh god, he just starts freaking out.
And if you notice, in some of those early seasons, they had the benefit of being early 2010s because they make some really good jokes that you can't say nowadays.
Damn.
If you notice some of those jokes, anyway.
Oh wow. So. Yeah. My 11 was Food Wars.
You ever watch a lot of game shows or competition shows, which is not a bad thing.
This is an anime actually, but there is a bunch of like yeah, it's an anime. But there is like
Food Wars.
Yeah.
It sounds like a Food Network TV show.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the funny thing. That's the funny thing, though, is there is like food competitions in the show.
So it is a competition show, but it is an anime.
Yeah, it's animated, but basically, but there's like a through line throughout the whole thing.
Oh, okay.
And you're following a couple the same characters throughout the seasons. But the final one came out last year. It's great. This is literally my second favorite anime of all time. It's just
wow.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. So
damn.
The animation is great. Like the way they make the food look, it looks delicious. Honestly, I wish I could make it. But also, I said this before, but this is actually like just a really good take on how people should perceive art and how they should like work on their art, basically. So basically, the main character.
Where can you watch this show?
You can watch it on Crunchyroll.
Okay.
You get some ads and everything, but I mean, it's still worth it. The first 2 seasons are on Netflix. Do not watch a dub. The dub is shit. It's just
really.
Yeah, I don't like it. Oh god. But yeah, I highly recommend it. But basically, the main character, he works at a diner, but he goes to one of the best culinary schools in Japan, and that one, like, you know, rich people go to that, try to learn the business basically on just how to improve their own cooking. So he's seen as like the lower tiered student who's just gonna fail, but because of his experience in the diner, you know, he's learning a lot faster than everyone else. He has like a lot more experience than everyone else, and so you just see him move to the top of number one student and all that. And so when I say like perception of art, you know, you got people telling him like, no, this is true cuisine, this is how you perfect any kind of dish and everything, but he's kind of like, I want to make it the cheapest way as I can, but still make the best. Like, that's what I'm trying to do here. I'm working at a diner. I can't get your $10,000 pieces of meat and all that. But also every character though, you know, they're all going through something. You have one character who also works at a restaurant, but he's Italian, and he always tries to work in his Italian knowledge of cuisine into Japanese food or Chinese food or whatever kind of food that they have to deal with. And it's just kind of cool that like, I want to stick to my own cooking here, you know, but still try to like, respect the other cultures of how people make their own food and everything. And then you have another character who, she's a great chef, but she always doubts herself. She always has anxiety that she's going to screw up and everything. And that connected her the most. And so you see her gain this bit of confidence as the show goes on. And she starts perfecting her food and not making like the best food in the world or anything, but she wants to make one where like, if you eat it, it'll feel like home to you. You'll feel good afterwards. And that's just so great. I so recommend this show. I will say though, there is something weird about the show. Whenever people eat the food becomes so good that their like clothes get ripped off and everything. So there's like a lot of nakedness in the show. It's anime, but
that sounds exactly like anime to me. What are you talking about? Yeah. Weird. That's up their alley, man.
The thing though is that there is a big purpose to it. There, like, it'll surprise you when you see it. But there is a purpose to it. It's not just because, you know, they want to show sexy girls naked or anything. But they also do it to guys, not just girls. But there's a purpose to it. And season 5 too. But like season 4 for me, like, was kind of the best one. But they did such a honestly. It has one of the best setups and payoffs that I've ever seen, honestly.
Wow. Damn, this is some high praise, man.
Second favorite show. First one is Violet Evergarden, if anyone's interested. But yeah. But yeah, Food Wars. Number 11. Didn't reach my top 10, but I mean, I'll explain why.
Okay, so with my 10, what do I have here? I have... The Haunting of Bly Manor. So this one was really, in many ways, I think, a very, 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 very good season of TV with some wonderful performances left and right. Henry Thomas, Oliver Jackson Cohen, oh my God, I think I forget her name, but the lead actor, and then it does that thing where it's like what the first with Haunting of Hill House did. It's like, it really imbues this wonderful horror aesthetic with some wonderful scares and wonderful creations and wonderful mythology. But at the heart of it is just like this romance, this tragic romance, if you will. And while I don't think it came anywhere close to reaching the highs of Hill House, like the masterpiece that Hill House is, it was also just, I think, in and of itself, a great standalone season of television. And I'm saddened that this is kind of where it's being left at, and Netflix isn't like doing anything else with this particular franchise, or with, you know, Mike Flanagan continuing it on, because I very well easily, this is basically a mythology series of sorts, where every single season we have, this is basically like the premise of, not the premise, but the concept for American Horror Story, but good, as Peter likes to say. And of course, it only ends up getting like 2 outings. But no, Bly Manor is just wonderful. And like when I go back into like dive deep into in October and think of the many things that I want to like put on TV to get myself in the mood for the atmosphere of it, definitely Hill House, but also definitely Bly Manor. Yeah, pretty great.
Oh yeah, it's great. My number 10, Superstore.
Oh, that's right. That's right. This is a really passionate show people are about.
Yeah. This one, I mean, the comedy is great. I love the way they kind of bring up the whole, non-unionized workforce, basically, and just basically shitting on that kind of system and everything. It's a really funny show. I love the characters, especially the main one, who goes kind of really does go through pretty big changes throughout the show. And the finale, this is also another finale. Fuck, there's a lot of finales in 2020.
They were, weren't there?
Yeah,
a lot of finales.
This one is during the pandemic, and I've mentioned this before, but like the first episode, people were going crazy in the store trying to get everything that they can because shit was shutting down, and they had that one joke of they're just gonna like last like a couple weeks, right? And just like, and then it cuts to like months later, they're all wearing masks and everything, and so it was honestly, the way it ended, it kind of worked in their favor, the pandemic, because of what happened in the end. I won't spoil it, but it kind of worked in their favor, and they really did a good job of kind of giving us a laugh during this time. But yeah, it's a great show.
Okay, and what's your number 9?
High Score. This is a documentary series, basically the history of video games, from its first beginnings to how it's sort of changed, not just from video games but from RPG games, where like they talked about D&D and just kind of how that sort of created RPG games in a way. Then they also brought up like NFL games, how that first started. It's a really, really great show, honestly. If you love video games, highly recommend. It's so fun with seeing its history and how it's changed throughout the years.
A lot of stuff I'd never heard of, dude. Really illuminating conversation. But all the things you're talking about are very interesting. So my number 9, this is kind of the bomb that's been waiting to go off because people are going to be surprised. Because this is 2 among my favorite shows, and one of the most cherished ones. But again, as a reminder, I am grading these on like the seasons, not just like individual episodes or arcs. Overall, the whole thing. And so number 9 is the final season of Star Wars: The Clone Wars. And if you like, it's in some ways I feel it's kind of shocking because of the highs that season had, but there were some lows as well. I will say, like, if I were going to take apart the last 4 episodes, the Siege of Mandalore arc, that would very easily like rise to the top of the list. If not the top, but close to the top. Because, and I kind of just rewatched the other day. I actually just watched for the first time again with my brother, and watching his experience of it. And man, I was getting the feels. I was getting chills, like watching that again. Like it was as good, if not better, as the first time I saw it, at least that 4-part finale. And all of the effort that season definitely went there, where you can't say the same about the episodes that come before that, because it probably is the weakest season of Clone Wars besides season 1, I think. I guess from a creative standpoint, because none of the arcs have anything really to do with each other in any way whatsoever. And it's also just, it feels way too short. Here's a problem with me. Why did this only get 12 episodes and the Bad Batch get 16? I think the reverse should have been opposite. I think Bad Batch could have dealt with cutting some stuff back, trimming the fat, and I think Clone Wars definitely would have been added if you added some more stuff in there, especially considering if you know that there were a lot of other story arcs that were just left on the table. And they very clearly could have gone and done those. But why was that the case? I don't know. So that particular fact in and of itself is infuriating. And that isn't to say that the first two arcs, like the Bad Batch arc or the Ahsoka Walkabout arc, are like bad. They're just standard. Pretty cool. They're okay. But they clearly reach nothing when to the highs when you get to those last 4 episodes, and it makes for a very uneven season. Again, like if all of the episodes were up to the quality of those last 4, this would clearly be number 2 on my list. It wouldn't even be like I would not even give it a second thought. But because of its unevenness, where it didn't really need to be. As a season, it suffers, and that's why it's number 9. But thank God for those last 4 episodes, because I still love that season and I still love the show. So that's where I am with the Clone Wars.
So I actually forgot to put that show on the list, not because I thought it was better. I think no, but honestly, like those last 4 episodes, I see it almost like a movie, honestly, because they really are basically like back to back, and so I just kind of forgot about it. But yeah. No, that's great finale, honestly. Another finale.
Yeah. Yeah, basically. A lot of these are finales.
Yeah. So my number 8, Blood of Zeus. This is a...
I'm just like, what are you coming up with these shows? Okay.
This is an animated show on Netflix. This isn't like a retelling of a Greek story or anything. Like, no, this is actually pretty new. I don't even know if it is real. I don't know if they made it up or anything, but whatever. But basically, Zeus had a son, and what's his wife's name? Hera?
Hera, probably.
I think so. Well, Zeus's wife, she finally had enough. It's like this is a last straw, man. And she sort of starts rebelling against him, and it just leads to like chaos within the heavens and earth. It's actually pretty interesting, especially because like I'm looking at it, and like I know a bit about Greek mythology, the Greek gods and everything, and so I'm just kind of like, yeah, she would do this. She would definitely do this. and like, I'm with her. It's like, stop cheating on her, motherfucker. So yeah, it's just, I mean, it's a good, the animation looks really great. I think this is the same studio that did Masters in the Universe.
Oh, I see. Okay. So that kind of look.
Yeah, so it really does look great, and I like the main character and what he kind of goes through. And actually, I kind of like what Zeus goes through throughout the story too, even though he's kind of like, he's not the bad guy, but he's kind of like the bad guy in the show. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I recommend it. There's one season. I think that they did renew a second season for it. I'm not sure, but yeah, highly recommend it.
Number 8. Blood of Zeus.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, me, number 8, I have the 4th season of Rick and Morty. Holy shit, was this fucking crazy. This show continuously is able to top itself with the level of just like absurdity, insanity, and hilarity. It's like the perfect combination of those 3, and there are so many episodes in this season that just made me just kind of like, it took my breath away with what the stuff I was watching on screen, like the slut dragons and like the episode on the train. Like, you see, it's just like, what is going on here? How they're able to continuously the writing honestly, I think, is a work of art. There's nothing that compares to it that feels like people who are working on a show that just get high on the best kind of shit before they put a pen in their hand and they start writing an episode. The characters feel as irreverent as they ever did, and it just kept upping the ante. It's truly a phenomenal season of television.
Mm-hmm.
That's as plainly as I can put it.
That's another show I forgot. God damn it! I love that show, so I forgot about it. Damn, where would I put it? God, I don't know. I don't want to think about it now. But yeah, for sure. Honestly, that probably would have been in my top 10, but I forgot. Oh well. Number 7, The Haunting of Bly Manor.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, I agree with what you said. I honestly, this is a great show. I want to see more, but and I wish it did get a lot more praise. It was weird.
I mean, to be clear for those who are not aware, The House of Bly Manor is a self-contained story.
Yeah.
There was never going to be a follow-up to the characters, but the whole like franchise of The Haunting, like Hill House and Bly Manor, they both told their contained stories. But when we say we want more of, we want more stories told in this, no pun intended, manner. We want more of this to continue because they're so good. Honestly, I wish I'd have like a Haunting of series every single year.
No, yeah, for sure. But yeah, honestly, like I kind of never really thought I would get such a beautiful story in a horror show.
I know, right? It was sweet.
Yeah, it's really sweet.
It was sad, but it was sweet.
Yeah. And so that's kind of what I want more of. Just kind of this kind of storytelling, really. I don't know how to explain it, but yeah.
That's your number 7, The Haunting of Bly Manor. My number 7 is the second season of One Miss Harley Quinn. Damn, this show is so... it's like how they're able to make you care about what on paper would look like hideous people, and make a family out of them. It's honest, and again, kind of like Rick and Morty, but in a different way. Like, the things that they're able to pull off are kind of beyond explanation. It's one of those things you just kind of have to see to believe, right? Every single episode is not only is it consistent with the laughs, but it's also consistent with like its commitment to telling an actual story and deepening these characters and putting that ultimately first and foremost. There's definitely a lot of opportunity for like deeping into the rogues gallery of the deep DC villainy and everything and all these characters. But it's like Kaylee Cuoco is amazing. Her relationship with Poison Ivy just reached a new pinnacle. Really just a phenomenal season. Like we're reaching like now from this point forward, I love these seasons of TV that I'm about to mention, but like again, listen to our review we did earlier this year and you'll have more details on that. But season 2 of Harley Quinn was without question the best DC content in well over 10 years. Now, again, this is before we got James Gunn's Suicide Squad, so I just want to make sure I put that out there because this is 2020 when this aired. So, it's fucking great.
Yeah, no, it's a great show. Where am I at?
6.
Number 6. What We Do in the Shadows.
Ooh, I need to get back on that show. I haven't gotten through season 1 yet. I only saw the first couple of episodes, but the first couple I did, I was like, "What the fuck is this?"
Yeah, no, it's fucking hilarious. Oh my god. But yeah, I love all the characters. I especially love the human character. I can't remember his name, but what he's going through in the show. Like just like what he has to deal with every single day with the vampires and all that. And there's a revelation at the end of the first season. Since you haven't watched it, I won't spoil it. But
okay,
there's that kind of like it causes a bit more chaos for him. And it's funny. It's so fucking hilarious. I can't wait for you to see it. But yeah, but then also the other vampires they're just, I don't know how they do it, but they're so fucking funny and just. They're the best thing ever. But yeah, honestly, just fucking watch it. If you hadn't watched the movie that it was based off of, definitely watch it.
Oh yeah, that's a great movie. A couple years back, 2014, I believe, the Taika Waititi movie. At some point, I am gonna watch the whole show, and then we'll come back and we'll do a whole review of it.
Yeah.
But yeah. My number 6 is another comedy, and this is Larry David's Curb Your Enthusiasm on HBO. This is an interesting case study because this is, technically speaking, the 10th season of Curb Your Enthusiasm, but this is the 10th season we've gotten in a span of 20 years. This show really kind of takes a break every couple of years. Like, we don't get, like, basically, yeah, what I just said, every couple of years. And this is probably among the only TV shows in existence that is able to maintain its quality and maybe even improve as it gets older. It still has that edge. It still has that Larry David wit, and every episode is just a blast. There's probably several legendary episodes just in this season. Like, the entire season is consumed with Larry's feud with Mocha Joe. And he opens up, he starts a trend of a spite store where he opens a cafe next to Mocha Joe's because of how he was slighted and everything. And that's pretty much the main storyline. There's also a Me Too thing in here where his assistant feels like, or was that the previous? No, that was this season. The assistant feels like Larry David sexually harassed her when he didn't. But the whole world thinks that he did, and he had to basically fall out of court. There's this moment where, like, she chokes on a muffin or a scone, and then she loses memory of it, but then it comes back in a very hilarious manner. And one episode actually has John Hamm guest starring, and the whole point of him being there is to shadow Larry David. And you basically have two Larry Davids in that episode. It is an outstanding show and a great fucking season. And man, the laughs I had with this one. So that's my number 6, Curb Your Enthusiasm.
That's awesome. My number 5, Lupin. This is a French show, actually. I don't know if you heard of it. There's only like 3 episodes in the first season. There is a second season that's already out. Came out this year. But this one is about a guy whose dad got framed for stealing this very, very expensive necklace. And his dad, he was like the chauffeur of a family. And the main guy, he blames the family. Like, they framed him. And so before his dad got sent to jail and he actually died there, he gave him a book of a series of books called Lupin something, or something Lupin. Something Lupin. But basically the story, and that book is about a guy who's basically the greatest thief in the world. And he actually learned how to, he himself become a thief because of the books. He follows it like to the T. And so years and years later, the necklace just magically comes back. It was missing for years. And he's just like, I'm going to prove my dad's innocence with this. And so he uses the lessons that he learned from the book in real life. And he tries to prove his dad's innocence. And honestly, I think it was a really good show. I like the thieving aspects of it, and I like the main character, what he kind of has to go through.
That was your number 5, right?
Yeah.
So my number 5 is the 4th season of The Crown on Netflix. Man, is this show fucking great. Alexis and I did a whole series on this. We had 4 episodes in all the 4 seasons of this show earlier on in the year. This is, without question, the best season of The Crown. Great stuff from Olivia Colman as Queen Elizabeth, but also Emma Corrin as Princess Di. And then also Gillian Anderson as the Hatchet Lady herself, Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher. And also the beautiful Josh O'Connor as Prince Charles. Some amazing moments littered all throughout all 4 of those. But just honestly, like, when you're watching the show, like, that's really what I would think of prestige television. It also is good too. Like, actually really good. And I don't know what it is about the fascination with this show. Like a lot of the characters are kind of like detestable. You don't really like any of them really, but it's one of these things like you just can't help yourself but watching. And the fact that it is kind of like based loosely on like historical fact, that in and of itself is interesting. And I feel like I get to know a little bit more about that part of the world when I watch this show. And it's also juicy and entertaining as hell. And oh my God, the drama that happens is like, I'm all for it, man. This show is so amazing. And I hope, I hope it gets, rewarded come the Emmys, because this is one of my favorites for sure.
Yeah, I didn't finish the fourth season, but I know if I would have, it would have probably been in my top 10 for sure. Number 4 is Manhunt Deadly Games.
I'm just like, what are you talking about? I never heard of these things.
Oh my gosh, this one is you've heard about what's his name, Richard Jewell. That one. So basically, you're following that story, but you're the main. Yeah, the main one is the guy who investigated the Richard Jewell case, and he was the one that was like, people were pointing fingers at Richard Jewell. He was the one that was like, no, we gotta. This is where it's going. This is who we're supposed to be looking for here. And so when you're following him, you're getting mad at the FBI. You're like so interested in like how he's able to figure out the case and everything. It's such a great fucking show. And the whole cast really is just amazing. And it just, you think it's gonna like, you have no, honestly, I had no idea where this was going to go. It was just one surprise after the next, and it really is an amazing show. I highly recommend it. It's on Netflix.
Well, for me, also on Netflix, but it also ultimately originally aired on Pop TV. I have here the 6th, for my number 4 now, I believe, the 6th and final season of Schitt's Creek, which I believe also swept the Emmys last year for Best Comedy Series. I'm not sure if it was as strong as season 5 ultimately, but it was also still a really strong season for Schitt's Creek, and also really nice point to end the series. Ultimately, what I remember Schitt's Creek fondly for is just like not just the humor, but also just the love, the warmth, and the acceptance of it. It was really kind of an interesting sitcom with Schitt's Creek, where you have the main characters, be given like fully realized arcs where they completely change, and it's really just a feel good show about the goodness of people, and what a change of environment can do for you, and what real growth looks like, and what love looks like. And it's definitely meant a lot to me, and it's meant a lot to many people. So that's where I have there with the great Moira Rose, David, Alexis, and Johnny. They're at the Rosebud Motel. And you can watch all 6 seasons on Netflix. It's... oh, my goodness. Beautiful. That's my number 4.
Nice. My number 3, The Good Place. Yeah, I mean, we talked about it before. It's on our feed, talking about the seasons. But this, honestly, for sure, going to be one of my favorite shows of all time. Beautiful, beautiful story, just about humanity, really, what it means to be your best self, a good person. And the finale, wow, I didn't expect that, and again, it really is a beautiful ending. Oh my God.
Since we're on that, I'm gonna jump over my number 3 and get to my number 2, and that is The Good Place. Since we're already on there,
yeah.
So I'll get back to my number 3 in a bit. So no, The Good Place, easily already number 2 in my list for the strong 4th and final season. But it definitely has made such an impression where it will be among my favorite shows ever made. And I genuinely do believe like the experience of you watching this show almost makes you feel like you're becoming a better person and you're learning more about how to be a better person yourself, while also being entertaining as well. And you're so caught up in these characters, and I'll tell you something, like the moments that they go for in those final episodes not just are earned, but those last couple of minutes, man, do they hit you like a ton of bricks. They really do, because it's not like heartbreaking, tragic stuff, but it is among the most powerful moments I think I can recall in recent memory. That beautiful finale. It kind of is a work of art, really, in a lot of ways. And another winner by Michael Shore here, the producer behind all of this. And it's a miracle, like a show, not only that it exists, but it existed on NBC, on broadcast television of all places.
Mm-hmm.
Which, again, we've also talked about it almost a year ago at this point. We did do a whole month series on this. Wow. Damn.
Oh, yeah. It's great.
So since you talked about your number 3, I'll get to my number 3 then. Because Good Place wasn't my number 2, but I jumped straight to it because we were already on that. So my number 3 would be the debut season, Apple TV Plus, Ted Lasso.
Mm.
It has made such a great impression on me. This show is out of left field in many ways. You have this basically college football level coach who is recruited to go work and coach a premier soccer league in England. Soccer and football are not the same thing. So that is already like the first thing that's strange. Jason Sudeikis, his character as Ted Lasso, is a magnetic personality for reasons that you're not truly sure who he is at first. So here's the twist, though. The reason he's hired to do that was because the owner of the club wants to get back at her ex-husband. He used to own the club, now she does, and now she's the owner of the club, and she wishes to see it burn to the ground. And so she hires Ted Lasso thinking it's the worst possible decision, and that's the point. Only she doesn't tell anybody about it. But then here you have Coach Lasso, who... this show is basically about him disarming everyone's cynicism and skepticism with his relentless optimism and his capacity to care. And it reminds you that there are people like those in our lives that, God willing, where the rest of us would be if it weren't for them. And I'll tell you on a personal note, there is a particular scene toward the end of the season where he is having a conversation with that particular ex-husband I mentioned of the bosses, of his bosses. And the exchange happens through a game of darts at a pub. And he talks about how many times in his life he has felt underestimated, and he never really understood why that was. And then he pieced together saying it really had nothing to do with him, and it said more about the people who were doing the underestimation and how they just weren't curious enough, and they were just overly dismissive. And that really resonated with me because I can't tell you how many rooms I've walked into, and I can already just feel through the looks in their faces how often I've been dismissed and how often I've been underestimated up until people get to understand who I am. And that moment kind of made me kind of feel better about those times, and like it really had nothing to do with me, and it said more about the people who just weren't curious enough. So that's a great, I think it's, yeah. I don't know what more else to say, but it definitely connected with me. And again, this is a show about soccer in a way. So the fact that it's resonated this much with me, I am fingers crossed. Can't wait to see this win at the Emmys because it's so fucking great. So that's my number 3, and you already know my number 2. So let's go back to David for his number 2.
Oh, real quick, the Lupin show that I was talking about. I remember the book that the guy was using. Arsène Lupin. That was the name. Yeah, just.
And here I was thinking it was the Darkhold. So go ahead and tell us your number 2 and then your number 1, dude.
My number 2 is Harley Quinn.
Oh,
yeah. Yeah, like you said before, like it's surprising that a bunch of bad people I care about a lot of bad people. It's just it's just a hilarious story, and Harley Quinn's story in this, it's honestly just, it's really, really great. Her coming into her own, trying to leave behind Joker and everything. I really wish we could see that in the movies with Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn and everything. And I mean, I especially as I like the Birds of Prey and that scene in the Suicide Squad, I really wish they can really take their time to kind of like really flesh her out in the movies just as much as they're doing at the show. It's so worth the watch, and I wouldn't mind that being like the basis of her character, what we can do with her in the future. My number 1, Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist.
That's a show?
Yeah.
I thought it was a movie.
No.
I've been thinking of something else. Okay, Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist.
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
That one, it's about a woman she is able to hear people's like innermost thoughts, like their most desires, but it comes out through song. So, you're seeing a bunch of songs that are like coming out of that new ones that came out that year, or maybe just a couple of years ago and everything. But she's literally seeing a musical number happening, not just from the person that like she's hearing their thoughts from, but like from everyone else. They just start singing and dancing. I like the dances. They're fun. They're pretty funny sometimes. But what I love about the show is just the characters themselves. The main character dealing with these powers, but also kind of like dealing. She literally is forced to deal with these people's emotions. She has to help them out, even though she's going through something pretty traumatic herself, which is that her dad is slowly dying because of it's a certain disease. I can't remember what it was called, but he's basically just turning into a vegetable, and so she has to deal with that, and then everything else that people deal with, someone coming out of really showing their identity, people dealing with some kind of divorce or loss or just all kinds of stuff. And I really do love these characters, even though some of them are just kind of like one shots or something. They did a really good job fleshing them out in either one episode or throughout the season. It's so worth the fucking watch. That's it.
Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist. Well, everybody knows my number 1. It's The Walking Dead. You know, this show, I'm kidding. No. I'm sorry. I couldn't resist it. No, I didn't see The Walking Dead, and nor do I plan to. Real quick, shout out to other seasons of TV shows that I watched in 2020 that definitely were not new, but gave me some comfort. That included Tron Uprising, When They See Us, Avatar: The Last Airbender, and The Legend of Korra. Thank you. And The Haunting of Hill House. Thank you to all those for also accompanying me in keeping my 2020 and keeping me sane. No, the show that was my most favorite of the year was the one that we obviously started talking about at the top of the show. It has been my favorite show basically for 7 years now. And I think it's a remarkable journey, and really outside of the show itself and how it was able to last as long as it did, right? But, you know, for all of perhaps the quibbles that you and I had when we were talking about the show, I really couldn't have asked for a better finale, for a better final season. I already loved the show so much, but the fact that I was able to get a 7th season that, in my view, rivals even some of the greatness of the best season of the series, which is season 4, with some of the best episodes they've ever done, with some of the best moments we've gotten from the show. Like, talk about this is the definition of me of a show that goes out on top and knows exactly when it's the right time to go out. And it's one that's aged quite well with me, even more now than a year. Can you believe it? A year after it finished airing and that we stopped talking about it. It was that rare show where you could watch it week to week, and every single week you and I would come back here and we'd say, man, wasn't that awesome? Yep, it was awesome. It may not be the best show out there. And that's for sure, when it comes to the perspective of so many people around the world, but it's my little show that could, and it's the one that's really kind of like what I took away most from it is that every single last one of these cast members by the end of the show felt like family to me, throughout the course of these 7 years. And that to me is a mark of a great television show and one that I'll always, carry a torch for. In the face of so much adversity and skepticism and negativity, I will always be the one to remind you, not only did this show exist, but it was fucking great. And I'm glad to see that I wasn't one of the only people in thinking that, and surprised genuinely to see the finale of this particular season be considered to be among the best ever made. Even to my surprise, how well it landed with people. This is exactly what you want, not just of a finale, but of a final season. It made all of the waiting before it worthwhile, and it brought it all home. And it was just simply magic for me. Yeah, That's kind of how it is.
Nice.
And that's our show.
Yeah.
That's our show of the shows that made that we saw in 2020 for good and for bad. And so I'm curious to see how all of that lays out. I'm when the Emmys air at some point later on in the month. I don't know if there's anything else to say. David?
Is there a show this year that you're really liking? Or
yes. Yes, of course. There were many that I really liked and really loved. And I have to say, I'm really curious to see how when we get to the end of the year. And by the way, if we see enough, we may do another one of these sooner than later for 2021. Is there a show I've liked this? Fuck yes. There's been several this year that I've loved / liked, and it's going to be real fascinating to see how it all kind of lands, because we still got more shows to see until the end of the year. But I will say there's two that are kind of neck and neck, and with me, one is clearly better, but the other one clearly stole my heart better, if that's even a way you can say it. So there's two that are neck and neck right now. But generally speaking, it's been a pretty good year for TV seasons as well. Yeah. So how that's all going to shake out, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you that when we do figure that out, we'll come back here. And if you want to hear more and David and I talk, well, hell, we'll be back to talk about other shows whenever they have more. I know for sure the next thing that we're going to recap on a week-to-week basis will be Hawkeye, and that is coming this year. I dare to say, I don't know if we can even sustain this. I don't know how would we sustain ourselves, because I'm not sure how much we would be enjoying it, but should we, I don't know, consider doing a week-to-week recap of Boba Fett? Because that would be really interesting to see how that would turn out.
I don't know. We'll see.
That's David for I don't know about that, Alexis. That does not sound great for our health. It does not. But yeah, that's how it'll happen when it happens. So Catch all of our shows. Red Spotlight's on. To the Table is back, by the way. Candyman, the first installment of the To the Table 2-month long series. Fantasy Fair is still going on. All of our shows, we're still here. Stay under our spotlight. Keep under our network, and we'll see you next time. Thank you, David. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.